The following is a presentation of the Tragically Hip podcast series.
Okay, we are officially into uncharted waters. We never do third ones. So let's see what happens.
Yer Hipstories, reflections from the final tour.
I'm with Adam from Tampa today, and I got to ask you a simple question, Adam. Talk to me about August 20th, 2016.
Beautiful. Okay, well, to kind of start from where May 24th, 2016, I'm at work and I get a message from my personal email that says Gord Downey has terminal brain cancer. Now, I was not an active hip fan at the time. I'd been 15 years since I'd really paid attention, but I hate cancer. And it got my attention. And I talked to a buddy and I said, I've got to get back into this band. So I had five of the records and I spent the couple months, but there was no chance. Despite all the other people getting tickets, I heard that it was impossible. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But when I saw the CBC was going to have the show, I said, I put it on my calendar and I go, I will be in front of my desktop on August 20th. And at 7:55 p.m., we had guests over, but I had told them in advance what was going to happen. And I said, I said, I'm not very good on computer stuff. I go, I don't know exactly what the link is. I'll either be back downstairs in 5 minutes or I will be back in 2.5 hours. And if you're gone, accept my apologies right now. Well, I go upstairs. I type in CBC Tragically Hip, a link pops up, and within a minute and a half, I go, oh my God, this worked. Cool. All right. So then Ron McLean comes on right at 8 o'clock. I know Ron McLean. Didn't know at the time how big a hip fan he was, but that was a great introduction. And then they're backstage. And I will tell you, my dad was a kisser. I was never comfortable being a man on man kisser, but I see Gord Downey kissing each of his bandmates, who, to be honest with you, whose names I really didn't know at that time. Blasphemy. I learned it very shortly thereafter. But I see him hugging, I see him kissing, and I see him go on stage. And I'm like, okay, this is electric. And I am riveted. I got some nice headphones. I'm listening to the show. They pop out with, I believe it was Courage, I think, but I have to admit I didn't look at the set list. But I know at the time I didn't know exactly what was going on. But I said, okay, I know this song. This is great. I'm really into it. And then uh, they played about 8 songs, which I think we all know by now but at the time I did not know that. And then there is this electrical storm thing. And I'm like, initially I thought, what did I do? Did I get kicked out? Nope, this is still part of the broadcast. I didn't know anything at all. And it goes on for about 6 or 7 minutes. And I had paid attention to the start where I said, they are in a tight formation. This must mean something. Again, like I said, I didn't know at the time what that meant. But then they come back on stage and the show just progresses in a very smooth manner until another 2 sets of songs and another short break and and I'm paying attention to the costume changes, which were super cool. Again, I'm like, wow, I don't know what's going on here, but I am feeling the audience. I'm watching adults tearing up and crying and emotional, and I'm emotional, and I don't even know why, but I'm just enjoying the show. And again, I should have prepared more for the set list, but I have a very clear recollection of the song Scared. And Day for Night is one of the records that I owned before, and I loved that song. And I don't think the song is about being necessarily scared of dying or anything like that. But at that moment, if I'm Gord Downey, I'm thinking, I'm really using this moment scared to convey. And it was really, really emotional. Uh, and I love the way the band, I knew he was using teleprompters, but it wasn't that obvious. It wasn't distracting. It didn't bother me a bit. And at the time, I had never seen the Tragically Hip live in any way, shape, or form. So I had nothing to compare it to. You know, is this how he sings before? None of that mattered. He was just giving a great performance, and the band was super. And I'm just really, wow. Grace to, and I don't know exactly, this had to have been probably at the, near the end. When he did the him here now, I absolutely, and some people disagree with me, I think he was in the moment and he was internalizing it but for just a
Right.
moment, just for a moment, because he got it back and because he's a professional.
Yeah.
Months later, I would be talking to other people and they said, no, no, Gore's a showman. You took this the wrong way. I said, we can just agree to disagree. You guys obviously are veterans. I'm a newbie, but that looked real to me. And, we went 3 encores. I was surprised. I didn't, again, I had not done any of the work that many other people had done in seeing the set lists and knowing how it was sequenced. I was just excited because I said, I want more of this. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I did not have, I did not have the album with the Head by a Century on it, but I knew when we got to that point that that was going to be the end. We were at about 2 hours and 40 minutes of music. That's a long time. And it was, and just like that, it was over. But not for me, because I was kind of jotting down songs and everything, forgetting that I could have just looked at setlist.com. And like kind of ticking, oh, I know this one, I didn't know this one, I didn't know this one. But it ended the show, I don't know, 10:45, this thing, probably about 11 o'clock. My wife had already gone to bed, and I kind of like just went in there and I was just woke her up a little bit and just tried to explain what I had just gone through. And making a note in my head that this was going to be very important to me going forward. And next day I found the set list, I started filling it in, and I said, oh, wow, of the 5 records I own, 17 of the songs were played. No wonder I knew, a decent amount of the material from the show. And then I started, yeah. And so then I said, oh, okay, these 4 songs were from a new album. Okay, so got to get that one. And, Trouble at the Hen House, okay, got to get that one. It just became something. I said, all right, I've got to start
Fill in
pursuing
the
this.
blanks. Yeah.
Fill in the blanks, exactly. And then very shortly thereafter, I don't know how I stumbled on this, but Jeff Myers from the Buffalo News had written an article. It wasn't current, but it talked about We Are the Same being a record that wasn't as popular as some, but he had a direct link to the Depression Suite. And I clicked on it. I was at work and I'm listening to this from Abbotsford. It's 9+ minutes long, and I am absolutely blown away. Okay, I'm buying this record. So that jumps the line. I'm getting We Are the Same. And then it just became, and I'm doing this on CD. So I proceeded to then just one by one. I got In Violet Light, In Between Evolution. I got all the records on CD. And you didn't ask this, but I literally spent the next 4 years listening to nothing else but the Tragically Hip, then Gord Downey solo, finding live shows. It was an obsession. and a deep regret that I never took up the chance to go to Buffalo when all the times they played. But I am really glad that on August 20th, even though I was not in the arena in Kingston, I still feel like I saw a show.
All right, I am with Andy from London today, and I have a question for you, Andy from London. What were you up to on August 20th, 2016? Take us through that day.
What was wild about that week is that it was my only day in Canada for 3.5 weeks. And for the timing of my travel to line up with it was just perfect. So picture this. So my ex-in-laws, who I still love dearly, are Scottish. And we had a 3-week trip to Scotland that summer of 2016, visiting family. And like all Canadians, I had the last concert date circled on my calendar. But in addition, I had a speech. I'm a motivational speaker and leadership trainer specializing in schools, set for the Monday in Pennsylvania. So this is what I arranged. I arranged that I flew home without my family so I could see the show. And then on the Sunday, drive to Pennsylvania. So my first little Canadiana was how blessed I was. I was in Canada to share that moment between Scotland and Pennsylvania. The next part that just unbelievably worked out for me is now I'm flying into Toronto, right? But I got to go to Pennsylvania, flying to Toronto Saturday morning, right? Because the concert was a Saturday night, wasn't it? And I'm flying to the
Yeah.
concert, and then I have to go to Pennsylvania Sunday. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to watch the show by myself in a hotel room in Buffalo, which, don't get me wrong, I know there's a lot of Buffalo Tragically Hip fans, but I'm going to be by myself. So I happened to be chatting with my friend Paul Jarrett. Grew up with him, Laurier Secondary School, Nicholas Wilson Elementary School in London, and who had recently moved back to Ontario and was wrapping up his Wilfrid Laurier University business degree and working for a company called Soundbox out of Hamilton, where they were doing kind of mid-level 1,000 to 5,000 person shows in terms of sound and lighting. And because he's a sound expert and now teaches at the Music Industry Arts program at Fanshawe College, sound technology. And so we happened to be chatting. I said, what are you doing for the show? He said, I'm running it at Gage Park, Hamilton. I said, what? Yeah, Soundbox got hired. We're doing the audio and the video for the Gage Park show for the watch party. Very first time, by the way, I ever heard the term watch party. I know we all use that
Right.
term now, but the very first time I ever heard the term watch party was, of course, for the Hip Show. I said, oh my God, that's perfect. I'm flying into Toronto Saturday morning. I'll crash at your place in Stony Creek, get a little shut eye. Meanwhile, he's setting up for the show. I will then arrive at Gage Park, see the show Saturday, and head off to Pennsylvania Sunday. Perfect. And it did line up, JD, perfectly. I flew in, got to his house, totally jet lagged, but excited. He was just heading out to set up for the show. So I got a nap, went to Gage Park, but I went there super early just to see what he was doing. And JD, it was just fascinating, right? It was the very first time, I really, walked through somebody setting up for a major show like this. And he had an iPad, and I was out in the field with him as he tested the sound levels and things like that. And he was using the Olympics. Remember the Olympics were going on at the same time? And he was using the
Right.
Olympics to, test the sound in the video. And they expected 5,000 people. They expected 5,000 people, Paul said.
Jeez.
And what happened was two things. One, that same day was what's called a color run, a fundraiser, a color run that was happening in Gage Park, Hamilton. What we didn't anticipate is a lot of them stayed because they're like, what's going on? Oh, there's a watch party here. We'll just stay. Two, the Tie Cats had a home game, and Gage Park is near the stadium. So as the Tie Cats game ended, those thousands joined. So what ended up
Holy
happening?
shit.
15, 18. His estimates in terms of walkthrough, 20,000. He maybe thinks walkthrough, passerbys, plus, a consistent 10 to 12,000 people took in the
Yeah.
full show. And what added to the excitement, you might not recall this, I meant to double check on Google before I talked to you and I forgot. But there was, I think it was either the 800 meter final or the 1,500 meter final featured a Canadian in it who got bronze. And that was just before the show. So you had thousands of people. He's now got the sound down pat. The audio, the video feed is working because most of the time he prefers a hard connection, like wired connection. He didn't. They had to do it all by, satellite. And he was like, I hope this works, right? And it did. It did. It did. Thank God it did. And so you got thousands of people watching this final, and people are cheering, and the Canadian got bronze, and there was already this Canadian euphoria. And the hip thing hasn't even started yet, right? And then, of course, the show happens. And on the one hand, yeah, I was by myself because Paul was, of course, making sure that the levels were right and keeping an eye on things. And there was, he had one other crew member. Two other guys came later in the setup and the takedown for Soundbox. But I didn't feel alone. You know what I mean? Like songs pull together memories, memories pull together people. And as we're singing Nautical Disaster, as we're singing Blow It High Dough, as we're singing um, New Orleans is Sinking, it's just the soundtrack of our lives, especially in my case, 1990 to 2000, which for me couldn't be more perfect.
Right.
Age 20 to age 30. First year university into my second year of marriage, right? What a transition in my life. University, running orientation week at Western King's College, starting my career as a 22-year-old, being a passionate Tragically Hip fan, talking to teenagers who were also loving the same music as me. Like now, I find teenagers don't like the same music as me. You know what I'm saying? But back in those days,
Right.
I'm working with them. Plus, they're also seeing the hip. They're also seeing Pearl Jam. They're also loving Alice in Chains, right? It was such a unique time. And yeah, that's a great feeling. I went by myself, but I was not alone. And
You're with the community.
exactly, exactly. And that's what the hip were, right? Where they were ours, and not just the obvious because they sang Wheat Kings and Canadians would know that's the hockey team in Brandon, just because we know where Bob Cajun is and we know the story of Bill Barilko, but in a way because, as we all know, they really didn't take off anywhere else, right? And because I had my U.S. work visa, like I said, my next day I was off to Pennsylvania to start the school year for a school in rural Pennsylvania. I just didn't find anybody who, of course, knew them. Now, of course, as you have found through your interviews, they have a unique following in places like New York and Michigan, but it was very small. And we all had friends in Southern Ontario who would go see them in Rochester, who would go see them at Darien Lake, who would go see them at a club in Detroit, because it added to the coolness of, hey, they're our band, but we'll let you have them for the night, right?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and I was surprised how emotional I got, right? Like, I know
It's
that
an
at one
emotional
point
time.
it was that um, Fiddler's Green. That was it. When he sang Fiddler's Green, and you can always see him tear up. You know, I had lost dad to cancer in 2010, and my friend Paul is battling stage 4 kidney cancer as we speak. Paul, who ran the Gage Park show, is now having his own cancer battle. And I wanted to bring him on as a part of this, but his energy levels are very wildly because of the chemo and because he's what he's going through. So I made sure that I spoke to him and shared his name and his contribution because we're all pulling for you, Paul, and we love you, Paul.
All right, I'm here with Brian from Canastota. And Brian, here's the question du jour. What were you doing on August 20th, 2016? Take me through that day.
It was a day that I had a lot of reflection, and when I thought back to when I first fell in love with the hip and with that Saturday Night Live performance in 1995. I was living in Watertown at the time, and I heard uh, Nautical Disaster and Grace 2 on the radio, and then when seeing Gord in the boys play, I was hooked. His presence, loved the music, but his presence really created a lifelong fan. But never did I think that they would just intersect with my life so much over the next 30 plus years. Um, you know, Anywhere from when I first met my now wife, who actually bought me tickets to the show in Syracuse during the In Between Evolution tour. She knew I was a fan, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time, and as they say, the rest is history. To um, her mom, who's now 92, when I met
Oh,
her,
wow.
and early 2000s when I met her, her husband had passed away in 89. She was 72 when I first met her, and she just had a saying, is that it's a good life if you don't weaken.
She
And
would
then to
say
have,
that?
she does. it's and This is a woman who, says, if she misses her husband, she just goes out on the swing and looks at the lake and uh, just pretends that he's just at work. So,
Right.
to,
That's emotional.
yeah, it is. Um, to even using some of their words to get me through my brother's eulogy. So, to a much more joyous time, um, when my now 25-year-old son said at about 16, said 6 months before Man Machine Poem came out, says, "Hey, Dad, you know that band you really love?" He goes, "They do the Depression Suite, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I would really like to go see them with you. That would be cool."
Oh,
um,
wow.
and speaking of that, that's who just walked in. But
Oh,
anyways, it was little did we know that 6, 7 months later we would get the devastating news. But we got tickets to the first night in Toronto, and we were front row, and and
jeez.
and we kept thinking, and I knew that it would be the last time I would see them live, and leading up to the 20th, and so that day, all these different thoughts, and I can remember it to this day. All that hipstery, as you quoted, and how much that it became a big part of my life. So that day I pulled out, I have a Bose sound system that I use for DJing friends' weddings and events for the local community. Um, and since I'm in the US, I was the only way I was able to get it is through streaming it on my computer. So I was able to get an adapter and hook it up to this beautiful sound system. And I live on a lake, and ironically, I have a great heron, a great blue heron that will at times walk in front of my house and have that same silhouette as in violet light. It's so all these different signs,
Wow.
if you will. Yeah, and again, just little subtle things like that throughout the years that have come to pass. But so that day, I got that set up out on our front deck. If you live on the lake, they always say the front deck or your front yard is the lakeside. So, I got set up, and I got a bottle of Macallan 12.
Oh,
And
nice.
unfortunately, my son wasn't there, but he had another commitment and it was just me, the boys, and the sound system, and it flew by. It was, it seemed like it was over in a flash. And the next thing I remember after the encore was my wife waking me up at about 2 in the morning as I was sleeping uh, on the sleeping in the chair that I was watching them in. So, and very very incredible. But I'm so glad that they've continued on with the Tragically Hip Radio on Sirius, on the bus with Rob Baker, any snippet, box sets, new releases, the book, This Is Our Life. I've got a copy that I read, and I've got the collector's edition.
Oh, beautiful.
It's it's been great to kind of continue to enjoy the ride with them as they've, you know, and I'm sure. I mean, what a big part of their life. But to
Oh,
be able to,
wow.
yeah, I'm so glad that they're sharing that, and again, being able to hear Rob every week, um, and their
It's a great
influences.
show.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, getting introduced to stuff like Django Reinhardt, Jason Isbell. As I've gotten older, my search for music has probably died down, but Rob creates a great outlet because his influences and curiosity in music doesn't seem to end, and it's so cool. So yeah, so I continue to live, enjoy, and I think I've become even a bigger fan over the last 10 years. So yeah, so that's my story, and um, it's been, yeah, like I said, never would have thought that I would have connected with a band, personally or cathartically, as as Cord once said during one of those live shows. It's just it's just a great connection I have and continue to have.
Problem.
Welcome, Brock from Kitchener.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. And I'm going to tee you up here with one simple question. Talk to me about August 20th, 2016.
Well, we started the day at a friend's place up near Renfrew, Ontario. It was my wife and I and our friends Denmark. And we made our way down to Bath that day and then got a ride in with Jen's family into Kingston and just enjoyed being in the city that day. We were lucky enough to have tickets in the K-Rock Center. So we were in the show for the last Tragically Hip show, which was obviously bittersweet and just amazing to be a part of that. It's interesting. I've never watched the nationwide broadcast. That's one of those things that I will at some point, but it's just like, no, I mean, my view of that day was from the seats in the lower bowl, and it was just amazing. We had, when I'd heard the diagnosis over the radio back in May, I knew that I wanted to get tickets. Reached out to my friend Mark. We're both teachers, so we had a break around the 10 o'clock hour when tickets went on sale. We were both, doing our best and texting back and forth, and Mark, luckily enough, was able to snag 4 tickets for us, and we went in, and it was awesome. The really interesting thing was, we went to the K Rock Center and checked our tickets, went in, sat down, and this was before the show had started. Obviously, we were really one of the only little groups of people that were in the arena. And I'm looking around, and I said to my wife, I'm like, no one else is coming in. I don't know what's going on. So I got up and went for a walk, and everybody else was still outside of the arena. And I guess there was some issue with the scanning of the tickets. So we were lucky enough to get in and be able to sit there for a little bit and just kind of be in the moment without the other 5,000 people that were there that day. And then they slowly started to trickle in, which was amazing. The thing that it burned in my mind what it was like to be in that arena for that evening, and I didn't want it to end. No, none of us did. We knew that it was going to, but it was one of those things that we just were hoping that it was just going to continue on, and having the flag pass over us, having the prime minister there, having Gord direct a number of comments toward the prime minister as if to say, I'm kind of passing the torch on to you, and you've got to get some work done, especially up in the north. And we were taken by that. When we came out of the K Rock Center at the end of the concert, I was disappointed, I think, in a lot of ways, because it seemed as though the market square had sort of emptied, and there wasn't sort of that continuation. So I felt we kind of missed out on that. We found a patio, we found a place to sit and have a drink and kind of mull over the evening. But that was where we were that day. Prior to the concert, we were walking around downtown Kingston. We were a part of all of the things. We signed the big banners that were out there. Folks came over to us and they were like, "Hey, we're doing a documentary. Would you like to be in the documentary?" And we were all wearing shirts. I brought. It must have shrunk in the wash, but these were the shirts that we were wearing. So, Tragically Hip, Kingston, August 20th, 2016 rather, and it had on the front it spelled "Gourd," and then if we turned around, it spelled "Love" on the back. And I can get behind anything.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so we were the four of us were interviewed. We were a part of. They asked us a bunch of questions about what does the hip mean to you and all of those kinds of things. So we're actually in the a long time running documentary for about 2 seconds. So they have us standing in a line with our shirts on, and then we turn around and they show the back. So. I just knew we wanted to be a part of it and kind of make a statement while we were there as well too. And it was a ton of fun. It was as I said, it was bittersweet, and it closed the book. The first time I saw the hip would have been back in 1988. I was a first year student at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, and they had come in. I think. Last American Exit was out on Much Music, and I'd seen the video a few times, and I thought, this is pretty special. So we went up. It was like a $2 Tuesday or something like that at the Turret. Went in, and I was just mesmerized, rather, watching this lead singer just sort of get into this trance-like state, and I thought, this guy's got something. And I remember hearing some of the songs that they had done, obviously, and then he started doing some Rolling Stones, and I was like, this is great. Like, this is just an amazing concert. And that was 88, so right before Up to Here came out. And then, of course, they just kind of exploded and became everybody's.
Exploded.
Yeah. And I managed to see them probably a half dozen times after that. Saw them in Kitchener a few times. Saw them in Walkerton when they had their water festival. Raise money. Went over to Michigan and saw them at Pine Knob. And... it was a part of my growing up and really an important part as well too.
What was the conversation like around the table at the pub after the concert? Was it like sort of dour, like
yeah,
down,
it was sort of like like that's it, right? This is we've been a part of something, and in the moment, I don't think you realize how big of an event it was, but it was sort of that letdown, right? Like, you're glad that it's over from the fact you were a part of it, but it's like when you come home from a trip, right, from a holiday, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, let's just get back to a normal routine sort of thing. And what's next? That was the other thing. It kind of felt like after that, everybody was holding their breath, right? Just, any updates on his health and how he was doing and what was going to happen with the rest of the guys in the band. I've been lucky enough to I saw Rob Baker. He was performing with a folk musician at a little pub called The Neat, which is just outside of Calabogie. And then last summer...
Where's Calabogie?
Calabogie is it's just west of Renfrew. So it's just this little town, and it was a great spot. So we saw him there. Last summer, we were at the McKinnon Brothers, which is a brewery down near Bath, near Kingston, and the Trews were playing that night.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then Gordy Sinclair came out, and because at the end of the show, the lead singer of the Trews is like, we're so close to Kingston, we need to play some hip, and we're like, yeah, that's great. And then he's like, well, if we're going to play the hip, we might as well have somebody. And out came Gordon, played with.
Oh shit, that's great.
Yeah, it was a great night, and so there's been those sort of connections all the way along, and
of course,
yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, and but it's also I know that his legacy has continued on. I work as a teacher, as I had said, and we have used our school is one of the legacy schools connected to the Downey Wenjack Fund Foundation.
Nice.
So, the kids understand a little bit more about the history of residential schools and a part of all of those other things as well too. So yeah, that ripple effect has continued on from that concert and all of the work that Gord and the other guys have done as well too.
I am here with Colin from Winnipeg, and I'm thrilled to ask him one simple question. What were you up to on August 20th, 2016, Colin from Winnipeg?
Oh man, so it's so tough to get into what I was up to that day without the context of what I was up to the months prior to that. Because I mean, I missed the show. I missed the whole summer. Basically going back to about late April, beginning of May, around the time that the news came out, the tour announcement, everything came out, the album came out. I had over the period of maybe a week and a half, I had my mom pass away right before the due date for our firstborn. And then we had our firstborn where we're literally postponing my mom's funeral because we're like, I can't be called away from my mom's funeral because my wife's going into labor and everything.
Right.
And this was literally right around the time that, the news of Gord's, diagnosis and the tour was coming out. So, I mean, it was never even in the cards. It wasn't even something I could even consider possible to go to the show myself. So, obviously when the show was going to be broadcast live, I mean, that's all I thought about. I mean, I get my chance. It's from many, many kilometers away, but I get my chance still. But coinciding with this, I'm like a massive Olympics fan. Like I live and breathe the Olympics for, 16 days or whatever while it's going on. And this, of course, is during the time of the Olympics. And I'd started a podcast with two friends of mine about the Olympics during those Rio games in the lead up. And the day of the Hip show, it's funny, we were recording an episode. It's probably the clearest memory I have. We've been doing our show for 10 years. And the clearest memory I have in 10 years was being asked the question, there's like 30 medals being handed out today. This is the busiest day in the Olympics. I mean, how much is CBC covering of the Olympics? And I literally responded with, they're covering very little today because let me put in this perspective to co-host not from Canada. I'm like, the biggest band in the history of this country, the band that the country, lives and breathes by, this is their final concert. And then kind of put in perspective, like imagine if Mick Jagger or Bono tomorrow suddenly said, I'm going out. I'm done. I've got maybe a year and a half left, but I want to do this. I want to do one final tour. And what a big deal that would be made. And even my co-hosts are like, whoa, that's kind of insane. And I remember that day where it's like CBC basically telling people, if you want to watch the Olympics, you're going to have to watch it on the app because we're streaming this concert nonstop. And it was like a pre-show, is an all day thing. And, because I'd missed like the shows, the tours here in Winnipeg and everything like that. My wife, who was always told me she wasn't a Tragically Hip fan, another band she wasn't a fan of, Pearl Jam, that I had always like gushed over and told her like, you just don't understand these bands. And I always kind of made the case. I'm like, if you listen to a song on the radio, you might not get it. You listen to an album all the way through, you'll get it. And it was in the lead up to, before I think Gord's diagnosis or the tour announcement even came out, I determined, I'm like, I'm going to get her into both these bands. And I made her on the way to work. I'm like, you're going to listen to an album start to finish. And I don't remember how long it took for Pearl Jam. I remember for Tragically Hip, I didn't even tell her start with Up to Here. I'm like, I want you to start with Road Apples and go into Fully Completely so you can see how the sound changes. And like, she listened to Road Apples. She was halfway through Fully Completely. She's like, okay, I get it now. Right. I prided myself. Like I made a fan because I've always been this person that for something really big, I don't want to experience it myself. And I knew I wasn't going to be at this show. I didn't want to watch it myself. I mean, in my younger years as a teenager, I would literally pay for somebody to go see a movie I was excited about with me just because I'm like, I'm okay going to movie myself, but this one, I need somebody there with me. So I wanted to make sure that at least my wife and then my newborn baby, I was that father who this baby's going to be sleeping and pooping and peeing the whole time. But like, you're going to be sitting there and watching this because this is a monumental occasion. So I mean, that entire day, as much as like I lived and breathed the Olympics, I mean, we recorded our episode that day very early in the day where there were still many medals to hand out. I was like, got to get this done. I've got plans tonight. And that was it for me. I mean, I sat at home, I watched this. I tried to put myself in that place. Like, what is this like? What would it be like being there for the final show? And I mean, it was, to me, it was just as important just to watch it on TV. I mean, I would love to have been there, but experiencing that so many years removed from the last time I'd seen them in concert was just incredible.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me send my condolences your way about your mother. I've lost my mother as well, and I know how terrible that can be. The beautiful news is you got a beautiful baby out of the deal,
Yeah.
and now that baby is 10 years old. Are you going to be doing the rewatch on August 22nd this year with your now 10-year-old?
100%. So again, I'm that guy. I want people to experience it. I know that we've also got twins who are 7 as well. So now I got 3 kids, and I think they're just at that age where I can sit them down. I showed them Star Wars for the first time. I showed them Superman, and they may pay half attention to it. But if I pump this up enough, if I'm like, you guys got to see this, and if I tell the story, this was the biggest thing this country's ever seen. This was a band that, through my teenage years, I mean, all the way up until the Music at Work tour, I was still a teenager, but I saw this band 5 times throughout my teenage years. Literally the first concert I ever, paid my own money for was the Tragically Hip and everything. And to explain to them how important this was for me growing up, and then to even tie it in and say, listen, like, Casper, you were a baby. You were sitting in a chair, probably peeing, pooping, drooling a little bit, but you were in front of this. Put that in perspective. I mean, they'll be there watching me because then I can make that memory. I'm like, it wasn't just me there. And maybe nobody else is going to get it the same way I am. Maybe nobody else is going to be able to reminisce and remember watching that show on TV the first time and halting their life, which was the Olympics, because this was more important. But, another 10 years from now, when they have a 20th anniversary screening, I mean, these kids are going to be growing up and they're going to be like, I remember watching that. I remember being there. That'll be their opportunity to kind of remember it and be there.
All right. I am here with Dan and Colleen from Buffalo. You remember Buffalo, and I wonder if they remember Buffalo or where they were on August 20th, 2016. Dan, Colleen, would you like to share your story?
Sure. I was in Chicago at the time, and then my brother got Hamilton tickets for the Hamilton show, third last show, and it was close to Kingston. So then we said, she's like, hey, how about we go to Kingston and we'll feel out the vibe, even though we don't got tickets and we probably won't get tickets. So once I got the Hamilton tickets, I'm like, okay. So I flew in from Chicago. We went to the Hamilton show. Me and my brother, Matt, went to the show in Hamilton, came back. And then Kingston. Then we drove to Kingston. Yeah. And on the way, I said, for the Kingston show, you can only get 2 tickets. And I go, just in case, if one of us can get tickets, if I do get tickets, which one of us is going to sit out? And it was on the CBC. So she said she'd sit out.
Yeah, our brother was the one who introduced us to the Hip. So I'm like, hey, it would be, respectable if he would be the one to get the tickets. And Dan ended up somehow getting tickets. We were at a rented place in the morning, and he came back and he's like, I got 2 tickets. We're like, how did that happen? And he was just happened to be just taking pictures around. He went down to the arena and people were getting in a line. And he's like, I don't know. So I just got on the line and I didn't even know what they were getting in line for.
Yeah, there was a boat show in Kingston on that same day. I was going through pictures, getting ready for this, which I even sort of forgot. We're talking about, like, you remember details or don't remember details. But we took pictures, and in the town of Kingston, there was like the boats, like these big boats were in the street. So you could walk around the day before the show and you could look at all these boats, which I totally look at the pictures like, oh yeah, that happened. Right. And then you're going to the bars and all that. And then there's a newspaper. I don't know if you were in Kingston, but they were giving out like these newspapers, and it had, like, Gord was on it and the Hip was on it. So you could like get these newspapers.
So cool.
Yeah. So I still got those. So there's still like in Buffalo, there's like the Art Voice or whatever, but every town is a local paper. So yeah, they had these collector's editions thing, and they were giving them out for free. So I got those. And,
I remember when we were walking around the town, because it's a cool little town, and there was like a big, huge poster board thing where you could sign your name. So we signed it for the Hip or something. We were like, from Buffalo. I remember that. That's right. The boat show. I remember.
Yeah, the boat show. So the guy who the Airbnb we had, he's like, oh, go down to the marina tomorrow, which we were like 2 blocks from. And he goes, go look at the boat show. So that was on August 20th. So I walked down there. They were still sitting in the Airbnb. So I walked down and looked at the water. It was so far, I couldn't even see the boats. So I'm like, let me just go walk to the venue. So that's what happened. So it was like 9:30 in the morning, and I walked to the venue, and like I saw this line, and there was some people in there. So I didn't even ask questions. I jumped in line, and this guy in front of me turns around and goes to me, "I'm 27, you're 28." And I go, "Okay, what's this for?" And then he goes, at 10 a.m., they just announced at 10 a.m. they're going to release 200 tickets. But you can't get them online. You can only get them at the box office. And so obviously, if you heard it even an hour away, you'd probably drive. I don't know how far people drove and got those 200 tickets. So I was number 28, and it was at like 9:45 a.m., like even 9:40. I only had to wait 15 to 20 minutes. And I was going to get.
God.
Yeah.
And I think when you came back, you said like you didn't have your phone or something because like only 2 people could. So I couldn't even call you to say come down.
Well, we turn our phones off in Canada.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So we had our phones off. So even I was in line. Oh yeah, that was the whole thing too. Right. I sort of forget because I was like, that's when we're talking about it. If we did have our phones on, I would have texted my brother or her, "Hey, walk down to the venue right now," and we could have gotten 4 tickets. But we had our phones off, no big deal. And we already had the conversation. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm going to take my brother, Matt, because us two and my brother, we went to our first Hip show in Buffalo at the Odd where the Buffalo Sabres, played before whatever it is now. So we had our first show. So us 3 went to the last show too. So it was pretty good, full circle thing. So I'm in line. I got the tickets full, face value. And when I went into the venue, it was in a penalty box. So I said, my tickets say penalty box on there. And so we stood. Cool. Yeah, we were front row in the penalty box, me and my brother, Matt. You watched it on the CBC.
Yeah, I watched it back we pre-gamed at the Airbnb. So we got pizza, we had some beers there, and then they left. I'm like, that's fine. I'm watching it right here. I was texting, I think somehow on WhatsApp with my aunt.
Do you have an ankle thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I always have something.
Okay. I thought she had an ankle thing where it's like she wouldn't stand the whole time. So I'm like, you know what? That sort of tips the scales.
I twisted my ankle like the week before.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So she wasn't going to stand anyway. I mean, or it'd be so, But yeah, so we were in Kingston. Yeah. So we went to the bars. Even you can see the pregame. We definitely went to the bars beforehand. Because remember, Much Music had the hip videos playing all day. Yeah. So his hip videos playing in the bar all day. Much Music in Canada was doing it. It wasn't even the local bar. So that was cool that they were doing that. And then, we decided to head in. They gave out free posters. I got a free poster. I still have it in my room. It's the big black poster from the tour. Maybe they had too many posters. I don't know. But they gave them out when you walked in. And, and then I was looking at my brother took like 10-second videos here and there. And that I forget now. You remember, like everyone had the Canadian flag, and they're passing the Canadian flag all around in the venue.
Yeah,
and it's a show that I don't remember like getting up and people going to get drinks like at a normal bar. A normal concert, you're gonna get up and go back and forth. But you knew it was the last show, so you don't want to miss anything. So I didn't remember getting up after we get our initial drink. We didn't leave the whole time. I don't remember anyone going to the bathroom. Right? So. And I was in the front row where the penalty box was. And so there was there was like 2 camera guys nonstop, just going back and forth, just trying to get all the crowd footage, which is totally fine. Then they'd stand in front of you sometimes. And you're like, what do you do when the camera's on? Like every other song sometimes. And who knows if it's on or what they're recording. But it did. So in the Long Time Running, I'm actually in it. So during the song Courage, my friends, they posted. I didn't see it. My other friends saw it first. They took a screenshot and sent it to me. So like, hey, you're in the thing. So it's pretty cool that I'm like actually linked into it by video.
And you can kind of see he's trying to come up with something to do because it's like just does like.
Well, the camera's right here in front of you, so like, hey, so you can't even do this because you got a frame. So if this is the frame right here, you can see the camera's right here. I'm like, but you're still trying to just like. Yeah, you're not trying to yell into the camera. You're just trying to like still watch the show. Mm-hmm. So, man, and I said too for the set list, I went to Hamilton. Hamilton for me was just this great show, and the only that set list was so great. The Hip, I just put the last show. I wish they did like Highway Girl. I wish they did a song from like the first EP album EP.
I remember
Right.
when we were going to come over the Canadian border. We're like, oh, this is the last American exit.
That's right.
Oh,
We said that.
Yeah, there's the sign that says last American exit. So you're like, all right, cool.
We
Yeah.
get it.
So it's funny, you know. But yeah, taking a road, we listen to every Hip album on the way. And we, you know, so I remember that too. And you're just getting ready for like a big Hip show. And it sounds weird, but like the next day after the Hip show, we got, you know, Burger King in Kingston before we headed out. You're just like, it's, you know, it was like raining. It's just sort of like, man, the big moment, it's over. It stinks, you know, and you have to like go on living. And I don't know. We had Burger King. I was just driving like, oh man, that's all this is all over. It's weird, but
couldn't even find like a Hardee's or the A&W.
Yeah, but you know, so yeah, the Hip show. I mean, great show. I mean, who didn't love it? And everyone in America, Canada's watching it. The Olympics were on. And they, you know, there's only like the CBC in Canada. They preempted the Olympics. As I tell everybody how big the Hip are to my American friends, especially, you know, not in Buffalo. They preempted the Olympics to put on the Hip show. That's how big the Hip are.
right.
And
Yeah.
who, you can't even fathom that. I mean, who would do that here? Or if they're like, they preempted every network here to put on a show. But, you know, the CBC is like the only game in town, you know, so. Fun stuff.
That's right. And yeah, it was just every place was playing the Hip. It was like the first time you went everywhere, and it was just like a cool small town, and everywhere you'd go, there was a Hip, and everyone's a Hip fan. And so we finally got to experience that.
Yep.
Oh, beautiful.
And someone's walking in, but okay.
We're
We're talking about where we were for the Hip show on August 20th. My friend Daryl here. Or where were you? Where were you for the Hip on August 20th?
I was at my friend's house.
Oh, you was at his friend's house?
Yeah. So he had like an outside, like a huge screen, and we had probably about at least 100 people, maybe less.
Wow.
Our friend always has this huge pool party on July 4th. And so, like, yeah, a lot of people go and bring their campers. So I did see, yeah, he put up a huge screen on the side of his house, and 100 people went over to our friend's house, and they watched the Hip show here in Pendleton, Lockport, New York. So, yeah, that's where.
So a lot of guys crying. It was weird.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But
so everybody walked in, all the Hip show. Oh, yeah, where were you for the Hip show? We all know around here where we were. So
sorry, I normally don't stop texting.
It's
okay. You forgot his credit card.
We're in a Buffalo Sabres shirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Proves it's authentic.
I mean,
it's
I don't know
authentic.
what you're doing, but
What's that?
I'm out.
Okay.
I said it's authentic this time.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
There's a drop in that rarely happens, but yeah, it's great.
That's right.
And he was at the Hip show. And I would have been at that party. I already know I would have been at that party if I didn't go to Kingston myself. So,
Well, I'm glad you made it to Kingston. That's fucking spectacular.
Of course.
And you got tickets like by accident? Like, my God.
I know.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for your Airbnb person telling you to go look for this boat show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I saw a cigar boat.
Yeah. And when I came back, I'm like to the Airbnb guy, he was like watering his plants. I'm like, oh, I got tickets. Oh, they were down there. Like, so even this guy was like, I didn't know that. Yeah, everyone's like, stroke of luck. It was just great. Right place at the right time. And I always say too, when you're talking about luck and all that, sometimes it's putting yourself into position. Like, you know, if they announced that and I was here in Buffalo and they announced they had tickets, I couldn't have made it there. But because I put myself into position, that's why you can succeed that way, you know?
Absolutely.
So we said that we put. What's that?
Oh, I just said absolutely.
Of course.
And it just totally changed the vibe of the day. Because we were just, okay, we're going to go hang out in the town and then we'll watch it at the place. And then now they're a buzz with, they get to go to the show.
Yeah.
And so it's a totally elevated vibe.
Right.
So what are you planning on doing to commemorate the 10-year anniversary? Anything?
I don't know. I mean, I know it's
on the 20th this year.
I don't know if, although it'll be on a week, you know what? I didn't think it'll be on a weekday, which might make it that I'll be sitting at the house. Like, oh, I can actually just watch it at night and hang out.
I've had it on my DVR for the past 10 years. So
Yeah.
I still have it.
Well, that's
just
cool.
watch the show.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times already. So, but yet to be on that day, if it's on, oh wait, I'll be here. You know, sure, you know. But to be there, obviously, that was the whole thing. That was it.
Yeah. Okay, we have Duxoop from Toledo, a.k.a. the Dark Canuck, joining us today. And Duxoop, I want to know what you were up to on August 20th, 2016. Take me through that pivotal day.
The Duck Canuck, you misspoke. Anyway, I was watching the show at home so I could hear it better and so that nobody would see me crying because I knew that was going to happen. And also because I knew I would want to watch it again immediately, which I did, of course. And because I've been so lucky, as I've told you before, I was really lucky to have had the access to the CBC down here in Ohio. We got the Detroit TV stations on our cable, and that included Channel 9 in Windsor. And I've always been so thankful that I've had access to the CBC and that outside perspective on the world. And the fact that they never censored things. For example, Tired as Fuck, no censoring in that. If it was on an American station, obviously it would have been bleeped and blooped and all that. And going in, I knew maybe 12 of the 30 songs they played that night through karaoke. I think I'd done all those by then. And there are still, even to this day, there are still songs that they played that night that I'm not completely familiar with yet, but that's the magic of music and any art, is it'll always be there when you're ready for it.
Absolutely.
I built that long ass chronologically hip playlist with 500 some songs, the band and all the solo stuff that I still haven't had time to go through it all, but it'll be there eventually. I've had songs that sat for decades before I discovered them. I think I have done probably 19 of the 30 now since then.
Wow.
But a lot of them were new to me, including Grace 2.
Wow. Duxoop.
I didn't know. I think knowing now, going back and seeing other performances of the song, it's obvious that there is a built-in freak out at the end, kind of a John Lennon primal scream kind of thing that is just automatic to that song. And there is a bit, I think it's, there's a bit of play acting and there's also real emotion in there at the same time. It's a bit of both, especially for that last performance. You could tell he was feeling it, but at the same time, you could tell he was being a pro and being a showman. I think Michael Barkley mentioned that in in his book,
Never Ending Present.
Yeah.
Yep.
That he's okay. There's a moment there where he actually starts feeling the emotion, but then the pro instinct kicks back in, and he just okay. You look, he snaps out of it, picks the mic back up, puts it back on the stand, and watching it at the time though, and not knowing the song as well, I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell is going on? What am I watching here? And thinking, has he really, lost control here? And then you see him just snap out of it there at the end and go, what the?
Right.
And know that he was always the consummate showman, and that you could do that sort of dichotomy there of, okay, this is real and it's a put on at the same time. You can do both. And as I've said previously, when I've tried to do the song in karaoke, I feel a bit of maybe I'm fooling people here in Toledo that don't know the whole story of Gord and everything. Maybe I'm fooling them. I'm not fooling myself. I think if I did that, somewhere up in Canada, I think everybody would call me out and go, dude, what are you doing? And so I feel like I don't know if I'm putting this off. Maybe they're buying it. I'm not. Maybe I'll take another stab at it again. I know next weekend I'm going to be doing all Tragically Hip at karaoke to mark the occasion.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really
But it
cool.
depends on what's available at the spot where I go to.
So, what was a highlight for you that night, other than Grace 2?
Tired as fuck, being uncensored. And I think we went through. Well, obviously, you came out of the gate with that first set. Those first 3 or 4 songs were all stuff that I knew. And so Courage was obviously a highlight for me because that's the one I've done the most. Hearing the new stuff, I know there was a block there. He did it was 4 songs at a time.
That's right.
Kind of album by album sets, right? It was like,
Yeah.
okay, 4 from this, 4 from this, 4 from this, 4 from this. And then I think it was 5 from Road Apples. And then the 3 encores were 3 from 3 different albums.
Yeah.
And I discovered a couple new favorites that night. Scared, Gift Shop became favorites of mine after that. Gift Shop would have been a great closer, but I knew Ahead of the Century was coming.
Right.
Okay, which one haven't they done yet? They're saving that for last, obviously. So I knew that was coming, but Gift Shop would have been a great closer too.
What did you feel when the lights came up at the end and you were sitting in your chair or at the computer? Or at the TV rather? What did you feel when it was over?
Just so glad that I got to see it. Like I said, glad that the CBC carried the whole thing, and they paid 9 figures to cover the Olympics and interrupted those. Just told you how momentous it was.
Absolutely, they're vital to our culture. Vital.
Yeah. That's the old what they always say. Canada gave the world rush and kept the hip to themselves.
That's right.
It's starting to change a little bit on that front, though, I think.
Yeah. But you know what? We're a nice tight knit community, and we're more than willing to share. All right, I'm here with Greg from Tacoma, and Greg, we want to know what you were doing on August 20th, 2016. So take us through that day, if you will.
Sure. Thanks, JD. I'll start with the punchline, which was I was in an airplane hangar weeping.
Nice.
So August 20th, 2016, happened to be my mother, Rosalie's 79th birthday. And my cousin Richie is born on the 22nd. And so they had arranged and my brother also was in on the arrangement of this, a birthday party at an airplane hangar in Tumwater, Washington, which is near Olympia, Washington. And it's a airline, like a museum of the air. So there's like old planes and, displays and things like that. And you can rent this place out and have a birthday party there. So we've got maybe, 40 or 50 people, my close family, Richie's family and maybe some of his work friends. So, but I know, 80% of the people are there, and we have trays of food, and we're going to have cake, and we're doing all this other stuff. And when I heard what we were doing for my mom's birthday, I just had this overwhelming sense of mixed emotions because I knew it was going to be the day of the concert, and I knew that the concert was going to be broadcast. And so I've been freaking out trying to figure out, am I going to be able to find the broadcast? Am I going to be able to participate in the broadcast? Is it going to happen like right at the same time that we're singing happy birthday to my mom? All these things are going on. So my brother, is 3 years younger than me, and he's really into the hip as well. So he knows kind of what I'm wrestling with a little bit, but is basically the 20th was a bunch of us having a blast in this big party in with airplanes and stuff around. And I have people I haven't seen in a long time and people I see all the time. And everybody's giving hugs and we're having cake and we're talking about my mom and celebrating her and talking about Richie and celebrating him and all these amazing things. And then every 10 minutes or so, I sneak off in a corner with my phone and just click into the live broadcast. And I'm just listening and just weeping. I don't think I had headphones. I was just like listening in the air. There's music going on over here. And I'm like trying to follow along, but I'm seeing it and just tears are shooting out of my eyes. And then my brother comes over and like puts his arm around me and he watches for half a song. And then he kind of goes back and takes care of mom and dad and the cousins. And while I do this, and then I finish that song, and I'm like, okay, I'm going back in. And so then I go over to my mom and Richie and give hugs and participate in joy. And then I walk back over in the corner and watch the next song. And at some point, Gord gets to, he's doing And Grace 2. And he just gets to the part at the end where the, who knows who she or he is, right? Who's saying these words, but somehow I always kind of identified this person as a young person, maybe a woman, possibly a prostitute, maybe at the door opens, him here now, no, and Gord is just, saying him here now, no, and I'm just seeing Gord talking to death, and death is at the door, and him here now, and he's just screaming, and his entire guts are on display for all of Canada to deal with this. Is everything ending? Is my career ending? Is my life ending? Here's my poetry. Here's this thing that maybe didn't even mean that to him when he wrote the song, but I'm seeing Gord talking with death, and like, you just showed up right here, and what the F, and all that. And so then I go over and talk to my mom, talk to my brother. So it was a big emotional day in
Yeah.
2016. And I tried to get tickets to the last show, and I had an impossible time getting to Victoria or Vancouver. And I heard later on that people, got no. And if you waited 3 hours, a couple people got through, and I don't know how they got through, but I was very
Me
happy
neither. It's crazy talk.
I was happy for all those folks. But significant to this story is my mom's no longer with us. She passed in October of 2025 at 88. And my little brother is no longer with us. He passed at age 54 in 2020, and he got sick in 2017 with colon cancer. But so at this moment in 2016, and August 20th, 2016, my mom's alive and happy. My brother's alive and happy. Gord Downey's alive and happy to be where he was that day and doing his thing. And all of us are connecting all around the world. And it is one of the most emotional days I can remember. But for me, there's the emotion of the day, and then there's the emotion of all the loss that's happened since then. My brother's portrait is on the wall right here, and I'm looking at him every time I'm talking to you, when I play music, when I'm doing stuff. My brother's right here. You saw me playing his bass guitar earlier. This is the Five Fishermen is the name of our band that we had in the early 90s. And when he died, he was wearing this same a t-shirt just like this. And he said, I want to be cremated in this shirt. It's got our Five Fishermen logo on the back. If I can turn around.
Oh, that's so fucking special.
So just this day was a huge, big day for the family. There was a lot of joy. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of frustration and am I going to be able to find the CBC broadcast? Am I going to be able to participate in this? Well, I get to watch this band that I've loved so long. And you and I have talked a little bit about backstory kind of stuff, but I'd been following them since New Orleans Sinking came out on the radio, and then the first time I saw him was 91. So with me, my brother, my friend Nick, who's also in the band with us, we're all just, Washington State, United States hip heads. And all of us know where we were on that day because we were, celebrating my mom's birthday. And it was, it's still a huge and important day.
Yeah, I
So,
bet. Will you be doing anything to commemorate the anniversary this year, Greg?
I'm going to try to see the rebroadcast. That's on the 22nd, I think. Does that
That's
sound
right.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to do that. And then my mom's birthday, is on the 20th. We're going to go out to dinner with my dad, who's 93, on the
Wow.
21st, and celebrate mom with some of the cousins who are at that same birthday party. And
Jeez.
we're gonna I'll be thinking of my mom on the 20th, and I'll be thinking about Gord, and I'll be thinking, just because you and I have both been involved not only in fandom of this band, but we also sing and write things, and work with words and all the stuff that you and I both do. um I just think about the guys. I just think about Rob and Gordon, Paul and Johnny, and like what they went through that day at that last concert, what they go through every year that this happens, what they were going through with this 10-year anniversary. Band relationships and brotherly fraternal relationships in my life have been all mixed up and all tied together. So to be in a room, my fondest wish in my life, related to the Tragically Hip. I have a lot of other dreams, but a very fond wish would be to see each of those four guys at some point, and just be able to give them a hug and just go, man, I feel for you and your band of brothers and your band and your life and your art, all that stuff. It's just got to be really hard for them, and it's hard for us, but they've given us this gift of continuing to keep themselves and give us opportunities to keep them on the radar, and enjoy and listen to that music. And so I thank them for all they do.
I'm with Janice from Kitchener right now, and I have one question for her, and that is, what were you up to, Janice from Kitchener, on August 20th, 2016?
All right. So that day started for me in Renfrew with friends who are also big Hip fans, and my husband. And we started to make our way down to Kingston. We had T-shirts made that had on the back, it had GORD. We each had a letter. We turned around, it said love. So we felt we were all ready for the concert. That morning before we left, obviously Tragically Hip music on in the background. And one particular thing I remember is that our children, who were 11 and 15 around the time, as well as our friends' children, were all singing along to the songs, which I thought was kind of cool. We made our
Yeah.
way down to Kingston. We stopped at the Welcome to Kingston sign, took a few pictures, and then made our way into downtown. I remember the atmosphere feeling very festive, lots of excitement, lots of different booths and things set up. We signed lots of banners and lots of different things. I remember sitting by the lake and having a few beverages and just kind of taking it all in. When it was time to head into the arena, I remember that we walked in and then everything kind of shut down. It was like they had a computer glitch or something, and no one else was allowed in. And for just a brief second, I thought, oh, wouldn't that be awesome if we're just among a handful of people for this concert? But luckily for everyone else, it did get resolved, and we made our way to our seats. And yeah, I'd say it was, everyone was anticipating this. And I think the word to best describe it would be bittersweet. We were all incredibly happy to be there for this event. And I think it was much bigger than I even realized, after watching the documentaries and things, just to see how everyone was celebrating all across Canada. But we felt pretty lucky to be there. And bittersweet because we knew it was the last one. And growing up, listening to hip music since a teenager, kind of felt like the end of an era. I remember seeing the Prime Minister there. I
That is
remember,
wild.
yeah, yeah. And I remember, lots of hip T-shirts and lots of hats and anything that really had to do with the hip. I remember the atmosphere just being electric when they came on, like just beyond any concert I'd been to of theirs before, when the band enters onto the stage.
Yeah.
So that was super cool. And yeah, I'd say it was like a roller coaster ride, when they would play my favorite songs, singing at the top of my lungs, dancing, just enjoying the moment. And then for those quieter, more introspective hip songs, it was, it was definitely sadder. I remember feeling like I didn't want the evening to end because I knew it would be the last time we would see the band together. Yeah, and then at the end of it, it was just like no one wanted to leave their seats, right? Like no one was making their way to the exit. I think a couple of the documentaries captured it where people were just, kind of waiting. They did come back and do their encore, which was amazing. And then it was over. And then I remember walking out of the arena and into the square that had been so festive and alive before the concert, and it was pretty much cleared out. I kind of thought that we would walk back out into the same atmosphere, but when I look back on it, I think probably people, were sad and it was time to go. So we hung around there for a little bit and then made our way back to where we were staying that night. So yeah, looking back on it, it was amazing. I kind of feel like it'll be one of those Woodstock moments where everybody claims they were there at the last hip concert in Kingston. But
8,000 tickets sold, but
right,
50,000 people were there.
exactly. So I'm so grateful and thankful that we were able to be there and be part of it. And consequently, we did make it into apparently both documentaries with our shirts on. So, that was our little
That's
claim to
so
fame
cool.
for like 3 seconds. But I think the bigger picture was just realizing how all of Canada came together to watch that concert all across the country and people's reactions and just the love that I hope the band felt. I hope Gord felt, because I think it was one of those iconic Canadian music moments.
Again. Jimmy from Detroit, I've got one question for you, and it revolves around August 20th, 2016. Can you take me through that day? What you were feeling, what you were experiencing, where you were, who you were with, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, JD, thank you. Very quick lead in. I had seen Pearl Jam 7 times in 2016 and had promised my wife that I would take her to Chicago to see Pearl Jam. Bought tickets, and then we all know the announcement in May about the tour with the Hip, and my wife and I were lucky enough to get tickets for London and Toronto too. Which left us in a bind because I wanted to be in Kingston on the 20th, but I had
Right.
tickets for Pearl Jam on the 20th.
Oh, you got to hear the shout out.
Yeah. Well, and that's the lead in, because when this all was starting to go down, and about 5 days, about the 15th, I had told my wife, who wanted to know where we were going, either Kingston or Chicago. Because we already had the tickets to Pearl Jam and we had a hotel, I said, we're going to go to Chicago.
Right.
But then I sat down and I wrote on the Pearl Jam forum, and I just wrote a couple sentences basically saying it would be great if the greatest American band could give a shout out to the greatest Canadian band on the 20th, on the night of the 20th. So now we flash forward to the 20th. We're in Chicago, and I have my Gord Downey shirt underneath my Detroit Tigers jersey, walking around because I am not a fan of Chicago teams. And so it was melancholy because I had a lot of friends in Canada, and some friends were going to keep me updated once the concert started going down in Kingston. So had many beers, just trying not to think about Kingston much at all. And then Pearl Jam takes the stage, and we were by some people that were just partying, and we were just my mind was just taken away by Pearl Jam, and we were having a great time. And then Eddie does the shout out. And
That was
my
fucking
wife
amazing.
immediately screamed, "They saw your post." And I don't know if they saw it or not, but I will go to my grave thinking they did and did the shout out. But he did the shout out, instant tears, and from that point forward, I wasn't having as much fun as I was before the shout out. I mean, it was a great show, and then one of my first text messages from Toronto was that Eddie just gave a shout out. Did you? It's like, yeah, I heard it. I'm here. And so then I had the last half of the Pearl Jam show. I'm looking at my phone, reading text messages, what's going on in Kingston, and that was basically it. It was very. It was very conflicting. It was a hard time for me because I love Pearl Jam. I've seen them 70 times, but to not be able to be in Kingston just to watch the show on the outside, it would have just been awesome. And
All right, I am here with Joanne from Thunder Bay. And Joanne, I have but one question for you, and that is, what were you up to on August 20th, 2016?
Well, we were still reeling from having seen the show on August 12th in Toronto. It was very emotional and just so glad we were able to go down and see the show. And we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for the final concert because we couldn't make it to Kingston. So a friend of ours decided at the last minute to live stream the recording on her garage door and invite all of the neighbors over. So we were over at our friends Sarah and Darren's place, and at least 50 of us joined, and we all camped in her yard and enjoyed the concert on the projection screen on her garage door. And it was incredible. It was just the way that CBC put it together too was just so perfect for me. And it was really just a national event, and I'm so glad that we were able to watch it live. And I've watched it numerous times since, but of course seeing it live was just unreal.
Yeah, how many people do you imagine were there?
In Kingston or where we were?
Where you were watching.
I think there was about 50 of us out in the
That's
country.
so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. Everyone was dancing and enjoying themselves. Even friends of ours that weren't necessarily Tragically Hip fans,
Right.
still really enjoyed the show.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really actually my daughter goes to Queens, and she has to go down on Monday to go back to school, and we were going to try and organize going down with her to be in Kingston on the 20th, but it's just not going to work out. So
Oh,
that would have been, I'm sure they're going to put on something incredible over there.
it looks like it's going to be pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But you got to take part in something pretty special on that night. Any highlights that you can recall?
Just trying to think. Well, when we saw them in Toronto, they didn't play Wheat Kings, so I was just so thrilled. We knew they would play it in the last show, and that for me was probably the highlight of the night because everyone was singing and because everybody knows Wheat Kings, right? So
Right.
yeah, it was was pretty cool.
All right, today I'm sitting with Spencer from Calgary. Spencer from Calgary, it's good to see you once again, first of all. Uh, but I have a new question for you, and that question is, take me through your day, August 20th, 2016.
Yeah, I remember it was a hot August that year. I had moved into a new house a couple of months before, and that day I was going to be hosting for my friends and family this great concert. As soon as I woke up, I think I was headed towards the smoker to get some ribs put on there so I could have everything ready.
Yeah.
That day, I'm pretty sure I smoked 3 racks of ribs. I handmade, a couple dozen pierogies, cooked up some corn, had a few other things ready. And when the people were arriving, we were just ready to go. Had awesome food put out. I remember we had these gold, shiny, glittery stick-on stickers that would go onto your fridge and our mirror in our bathroom. And they were letters. So we would write out the names of all the different songs that we thought we might hear, Gus the Polar Bear and Tired as Fuck and Poets and all that. So tried to decorate a little bit. Hard kind of decorating your house for such a celebration, but also such a sad event. It was kind of hard to, balance those two. And then, we had a bunch of people that I went to the concert with some friends, some family come over. We had a strict rule that we're focused on the hip that night. No side conversations, nothing. Don't bring somebody that's not going to be paying attention to the concert. And
Not the right time for that shit.
No, exactly. This was all about the hip. So I had a nice big screen TV and surround sound speakers that I was proud to show off and display at its ultimate power. And we just had that concert cranked. I remember when they were walking out and embracing each other. I thought that was a cool behind the scenes kind of thing. It wasn't just like a shot of a crowd and the band comes on stage. We got to go backstage with them beforehand. Like, how cool of an intimate experience that was. You could see the set list on the wall if you were looking closely. So we were trying to see what they were opening with. And I was so, interested in their set lists and how they were arranging everything and what they were going to do. I kind of knew for sure they would probably end with Ahead by a Century because that is just such a perfect song and a perfect way to end it. I thought there was a chance maybe, New Orleans is Sinking or Below It High Dough, maybe as a closer. But I thought pretty positive it was going to be Ahead by a Century. And so I thought they would open with Below It High Dough. I thought that'd be like a perfect opening song for that night. Just the lyrics, the way it builds in the opening and kind of what it's talking about. I just thought that would have been the perfect one. And they started with 50 Mission Cap, which, I like that song, but I was surprised. I'm still surprised when I look back at that set list that was the one that they chose. I kind of even thought they'd start with the Up to Here album, like, just one of their first albums that really hit it big. But after 50 Mission Cap, they went right into Courage. And I mean, Courage could have been another one that they would have started with. That's a perfect opening song. And then Wheat Kings, 100th Meridian. So the first 4 songs, that's pure Canadiana right there.
Oh my
that's
God.
Everything Canada maybe just shoved into the first 4 songs. Maybe that's why they chose to open it that way. So, that's kind of a great start. I remember Gord singing Tired as Fuck during that concert and how that hit so differently, obviously, on the whole tour and especially that night. I would have loved to see what Gord went through that entire day. I know we got the doc and all that, but he must have been tired as fuck getting on stage already at that point and
Oh,
knowing
it's been
that
a month.
the whole nation was behind him too. Watching him, that's so much pressure, and he must have had so much friends and family there helping him, support him. I'm sure that just would have been an amazing experience.
Now, because of
Yeah,
your set list sleuthing, were you expecting music at work? Like, where did that puzzle
no,
piece land for you?
yeah. I didn't know how many encores they would be doing and how deep they would be going. We also had
Right.
like the time slot on the DVR that the satellite was telling us how long the concert was going to be, and I was unsure if they were going to stick to that or go over, or how long it was going to be. Music at work is an interesting one. Toronto number 4. I probably could have had 100 guesses before maybe I would have guessed that song would have played.
At their last
But
concert.
yeah, at their last concert,
Yeah.
yeah, like wow,
Yeah.
that's an interesting choice. And I,
Totally.
being a hip fan, and so many of us have been to so many concerts, we really appreciated any time they would pull out a rare song or one that we possibly hadn't heard before when they hadn't played in a long time, or anything like that. So to hear that song was pretty cool. Lake Fever, whew, that song is such a good live song to hear. It's such a kind of a good moody song. That was a great one to hear as well. Going into Road Apples, my favorite album, it was great to hear songs from the album that really got me into the hip. Hearing Fiddler's Green is always such an emotional song. It's my sister's favorite song, so to hear that being performed on a national stage was really cool. Last of the Unplugged Gems, it's the last song on the album. It's not one that they would play a ton. And it's a little bit of a different song for them. It's got that really slow, long intro. So it was cool that they would take the time to play that one. It was great. And then, holy cow, before the encore, Something On, Poets, Bob Cajun, Fireworks.
Could have
I
been the
mean,
encore right there.
worst. Yeah, that could have been the encore right there. I remember sitting with the people that we were with. Every time they would get through, an album, we were just hoping it was going to be more songs coming. We were hoping it wasn't going to end. And it was a long concert. Like, it's a long emotional time to
It's close
try
to
to
3
work your
hours,
way
right?
through. Yeah, and all your emotions. Like, you get through some songs and then you get hit with a Scared. You're like, oh, okay, I got to go through these emotions. Where he's singing Tired as Fuck, and you're like, okay, yeah, I understand. I relate to that. Some of these Locked in the Trunk of a Car where he's belting Let Me Out. There's just so much emotion to so many of these songs. It's crazy when he just lines them all up in a row. Encore 2, Nautical Disaster, Scared, and Grace 2. Oh,
Unreal.
Just 3 of my favorite songs. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And I think after this recording, I'm probably gonna have to go throw it on and listen to it.
The live show?
And then they get to their I've got to go listen to the live show again. Like, looking at the set list, it's an incredible set list. It's been a couple of years since I've gone back and watched it. I'm going to be doing it obviously on the 20th or 22nd, whatever. I think it's the 22nd that they're doing it. I think I just read, whatever the date is.
22nd. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah, 22nd. That's right. So yeah, I'm going to be watching it there, but I think I got to go back and watch it again. And then when they get into that third encore, where Uncharted Territory, Locked in the Trunk of a Car, what a gift of a bonus song you get there. Gift Shop, and then when they close with the Head by Century, I think we've all seen the compilation video on YouTube of all the different watch parties around Canada and how everyone was feeling through that. And man, our
How
whole
are you
nation
feeling?
was I don't even know if I can put it into words. It's so many different feelings at once. It's first of all, that song, I think, has to be a top 5 most beautiful songs ever written. I feel like it's, Here Comes the
That's high
Sun and Ahead
praise.
by a Century. And, I think there's certain songs that are just absolutely beautifully written. And I think Ahead by the Century is just one of those. And he's ending on, talking about disappointing you's getting me down.
Oh,
Uh, what a
killer
hard statement to hear, because he's not disappointing us in any way.
in any way.
He's just done a monumental feat that most people couldn't imagine getting through, and yeah, didn't disappoint us in any way. That concert rocked.
Okay, I've got Steve from Toronto here. And Steve, I have but one question for you. What do
Let's
you
have it.
recall about August 20th, 2016?
So I was one of the lucky ones who was inside the K-Rock Center that night. I got a single ticket about half an hour after they went on sale, and was 10 rows away from the stage. And
Wow.
it's strange to think that it's been 10 years, because it's one of those shows that you see and that you feel like it always happened yesterday, because the memories are still so clear. But having said that, when I look back through the set list, there's things that stand out. And the thing that I have said to many people over the past decade, and again, it's strange to say over the past decade, my feeling is that if you were watching the show like on TV or on a computer on a screen, I think that it was a super duper intense, emotional, sad experience. I think if you were at the show, it was a rock concert and it was celebratory. And it's hard to explain how it felt inside the room other than it actually felt celebratory. And it didn't feel, at least to me, as sad as it did watching highlights of the show later on. I've actually not sat back. I haven't watched the concert. I've seen a few of the songs, but I haven't actually sat down and rewatched the whole show, and I don't know if I ever will. But the one I always come back to is Grace 2, because to me, it's the moment of the show, the moment of the tour, maybe the moment of the band's live career. When you're watching it on TV and Gord's breaking down at the end of the song, you feel completely helpless. You feel powerless. You're just staring at the screen, watching him start to sob. But when you're at the show and that happens, you just start making as much noise as you know how to make to help your guy pull through in that moment. And I remember that moment in particular of just how loud the building got, where it was almost like you could see what was happening on stage and everyone was like, "We got you here, Gord." And everyone went absolutely ballistic. And that was an astonishing moment. There were lots of wonderful moments in the show. Ahead by a Century, obviously. Blow at High Dough. The last blow at High Dough, it felt like the building was levitating. But the way that everyone sort of banded together in that moment for Gord during Grace 2, that's the moment that lives with me the most.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective from the inside. I don't know that anyone else has isolated that Grace 2 moment as in the way that you just did from inside. Because you're right, on the outside, it did look, yeah, there was mourning. There was mourning going on. And you guys were celebrating. That's fantastic.
It felt like, I think I said or I wrote at the time, it felt like homecoming, and it felt like the homecoming parade to an extent. And I've been on a couple of the retrospective episodes talking about shows I saw on the tour, and I was of the opinion that it was not the end for the Hip. I blindly and naively carried that into the Kingston concert, and I carried it beyond the Kingston concert. So I may not have been feeling
feeling it in the same way as people who had a more realistic perspective. Scared was tough that night. I remember that, but I still had it in the back of my mind that there might be other shows after this, so it didn't have that finality. But even within that context, I mean, that the Grace 2 moment was astonishing. And I used to be really big into ranking stuff, like best shows I've ever seen, and I used to carry a pretty consistent top 5, top 10 list. But there's always been, since that day, at least, there's 2 shows that sort of exist outside that realm. I once saw Pearl Jam in my hometown, which is Thunder Bay. I saw them in the rink where I learned how to skate. So that show was one, and the Hip show on August 20th, 2016. Those are the 2 that they exist beyond the realm of sort of any objectivity. It was a pretty remarkable thing to get to experience, and something that I'm feel really lucky to have experienced. And, just sort of one other thing from that day too, in the moment where you thought maybe this is the last time I see this band, you're just starting to think back over the years, your relationship with the band and what they've meant to you. And, the Hip are my band in a very different way than any other band, in that, quite apart from being Canadian, I went to school in Kingston from 1999 to 2004. I lived around the corner from Rob Baker for 2 years. They were my band in a different sense than anyone else. And then just thinking of all the friendships that were so intrinsically tied to seeing the Hip, or to listening to the Hip, or talking about the Hip. I'm going to just shout outs to my friends Brian and Talia, Margaret and Kevin and Mike. Those were the names that sort of came top of mind. Just how many awesome memories we shared together going to Hip shows. And it's still so weird that we just can't do that anymore. And that was the last one of those nights we all got together. I was there with my old roommate, Rahul. We were sitting separately, but we went out afterwards. And just having those moments being such a big part of my life for so long and not getting to have them anymore, that's the thing I'm most sad about.
I'm with Todd from Fort Mac, and I've got a question for you, Todd, and that is, what were you doing on August 20th, 2016?
Well, when you
Take
say
me
the
through
word,
the day.
yeah, well, when you say the words Fort Mac in 2016, it'll happen in everyone's mind that was here. It was that was the year of our big wildfire that we had in Fort Mac that time. So that sticks out, but it leads into the August 20th date, because actually I went on quite a large road trip that year. Basically, me and my brother, we went down, watched some baseball in New York, went on a big road trip there because I had a whole bunch of time off after putting in all these extra hours with the wildfire. And me and my whole family gathered August 20th in my grandfather's home in Cape Breton. So that date sticks out. I know it's one of those
beautiful,
just absolutely poetic times where it all kind of matched up. It came about, the tour was announced, the concerts were announced, the broadcast was announced, and we knew we were going to be on the road. So yeah, me, my whole family at my grandfather's house in Cape Breton, and then it doesn't matter what anyone was doing. Little Lewisdale, Cape Breton, we all kind of stopped and we came in to watch the show. So that year, that time, that plays a big role in my heart, just for the fact that it was actually the last time we kind of got to hang out with my grandfather. He passed away about a year and a half later, just due to complications. Older, he was in his 90s, so it was kind of our last family hurrah watching that one. So as soon as you mentioned the date, lots of feelings come out on that one.
I bet. Was it just the family, or was there a community event occurring around the time?
It was it's Lewisdale, Cape Breton, so it's pretty much a town of like a couple hundred. So even a family event is a community event. You know what I mean? It's
right.
A lot of people end up gathering just because the whole family is right around that area. So yeah, it was My grandmother, his wife, my grandmother passed away a couple of years before, so this was our last gathering of that part of the whole family, just because a lot of us live out on the West Coast. So doing that whole trip and then enjoying a Canadian cultural event like the Tragically Hip on their final stop of their tour was just an added bonus to this whole memorable time, right? And that show was just absolutely incredible. So,
Any highlights that you can recall?
trying to think. Just to me, to me, it's the singing along to basically every song without knowing it. You know what I mean? How the whole family's there. We're chatting. You know, you're commenting. Everyone's talking about how everyone looks, how everyone seems nice and healthy, the diagnosis, all that kind of stuff, and you know what I mean. And you're not really paying attention because you're just kind of chatting as a family, and you're still watching. But I'm knowing every word, singing every word, tapping. You know what I mean? And I'm a big Hip fan, but my fandom comes from my father. He was obsessed with them, just growing up in that time frame. And how I got to love the band and listen to them is through him. So seeing him watch that show, my grandfather watching it, and then me and all of us just kind of singing along, even though we've never really talked about music, and this never really been one thing. It's just something that's always been in the background. But it's interesting how it's in the background and then hits the foreground, right?
Yeah, that is really cool to have that occur in real time as you're watching this show.
And it's just, like I said, it's poetic. It's one of those things. As soon as you mentioned, hey, let's come in and chat about that date and time, and I'm like, wow, 2016 was 10 years ago, and it was a massive year for me being in Fort Mac with what we went through, the time I had off, and the trip we decided to do with that time off, and then knowing that, hey, we were going to end this road trip. Well, not end, but because we drove back from Cape Breton back to Alberta, but we were all going to meet up with the family in Cape Breton. And then it just so happened, hey, guys, guess what's just got announced on August 20th? It's the show. So we're all going to sit down and watch it in whatever weird time frame Cape Breton is to the rest of the world. But I think it's like, what is it, an hour and a half or an hour difference than Toronto? But yeah, it was. It just all kind of lined up, and to me, that just makes the memories even that much more, because I know everyone has a story like that, but that's what sticks out in my head. It all lined it up, right?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Family, community, the band all coming together on August 20th.
Yeah, and just it was truly a celebration of not just the band itself. That's always been there, but to me, it's a celebration of Canadian culture. And to me, that's what it's been all about. And I know that wasn't never the intention, but it's just always what it turned out to be. Right?
Thanks for listening. This has been a presentation of the Tragically Hip podcast series. For more information and to follow us, visit home.tthpods.com. If you'd like to reach JD, send an email to jd@tthpods.com.